Hey, it's Wednesday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a disability arts organisation in the main London 2012 borough of Newham. We were the main host borough for the Paralympics, and we are creating a cultural legacy. We've been online since the 30th of March, embracing our unexpected digital year. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as the artist Ju90. I'm artistic director of Together 2012, and we're running this live stream from my studio in Canning Town. With me in the studio is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. I'm going to come back to Julie for a bit of audio description in a minute, but first, let's have some introductions from the people wriggling around at the other end of our virtual sofa in the West Midlands.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Robin Surgeonator. I am business director at 2012 and an artist known as Angry Fish. Yes, we look great beforehand, and then when it zooms in, we suddenly find that we're not quite in the right place. So sorry about that. Today up here in the Midlands, it is extremely wet. It has, in fact, almost not stopped raining since just after the show on Monday. And I had to go out earlier. Hence the look. Sorry.
Do you look like?
I look like someone who's been out in the rain and slightly dishevelled with no-rimmed glasses with black arms. Even less shaved than I was on Monday. So I've got about I don't know, 5 mil growth, but it is coming off shortly. And today I am wearing a black polo shirt, which you can, for those who can see, it says Angry Fish on the left breast.
I am Josh Surgeonator. I'm also one of the hosts of Together TV, and I am a PhD student. I have blonde hair that's actually up and pulled back at the moment because I couldn't see, and it made me sneeze all the time because it kept going in my nose. So my lovely sister helped me out by putting it into a kind of ponytail bun-esque function over fashion.
It is blonde today, though.
But yeah, it is
blonde. Just rocking those coronavirus looks.
Yeah. If anyone remembers Troll Dolls, it's kind of a little bit like that. And I'm actually wearing my glasses today as well because I was being all academic earlier and reading a journal that was printed in lovely Access Standard 4-point, I think. So I had to put some glasses on to be able to read the kind of scan of the document from about 1985. So they are black frames, black arms with a little white bit at the end, but you can't see that.
And what are you wearing?
Oh, yes. I'm wearing a long sleeve polo shirt that has, it's a blue top kind of over the shoulders and chest, and then white, and then blue for the rest of it. And it has a blue collar, and it has the Rugby World Cup logo from Japan last year on the breast.
Brilliant. We try and do audio description throughout the show, not just for visually impaired viewers, but also because we know that it's not always that easy to see on an internet channel compared to the standard broadcast. So I have a very short self-inflicted corona crop, hennaed red. I've got black plastic glasses, I've got black wrist braces, I've got silver jewelry. And for once, although it fades a bit into the background, I have a black t-shirt on with a Doctor Who Cyberman. And I'm partly wearing that because at 3:15 we have the third of our new update features where we'll be telling you all about the new NHS coronavirus app, which I have seen, one of the first people in the country. So we're going to get to that at 3:15. But first, we'll be talking art, poetry. But first of all, what do you look like, Julie?
Another day older. I've got silver and gold hair. I've got dark rimmed glasses. I've got a white t-shirt with "Choose Love" written on it in black letters. I've also adorned today. I'm adorned with a torque, which is a type of bracelet with wolf's heads on it, and also with a little pendant with two wolves baying at the moon. So I'm very wolfish today.
Yes, well, of course, that is partly because both you and Josh had a birthday yesterday, and our writer in residence, Penny Pepper, had a birthday on Sunday. We've already sung happy birthday to you, but I'm glad you like your presents, and we hope you had a good day as well, Josh. Did you do
Yeah,
anything exciting indoors?
it was kind of fairly relaxed, fairly chill. Um, Obviously, I would have liked to kind of gone and seen some friends, but that's not happening at the moment. And it was very kind of dreary and wet uh, down here in Sutton yesterday. So we decided not to organise anything because we couldn't guarantee it wasn't going to rain. And it's good that we did because it absolutely chucked it down. So I just kind of sat inside, watched some TV, did some drawing, carried on my process of learning to draw. So yeah, it was
And
quite
had
nice.
your favourite meal.
Oh yeah, and we had lasagna and chocolate cake as well. Not
So
together.
I was about to say yes. We actually, I think, for once found an upside to the lockdown and coronavirus and so on because we were able to watch a brand new film, Artemis Fowl, on the TV, which had the added advantage of not having to find dog sitters for the assistance dogs if we went to the cinema for Julie's birthday, and solved the problem where Julie had said she didn't want to go to any more films on her birthday because she didn't like leaving the dogs. So we had popcorn and sweets and fizzy drinks.
And it's
And
a great film, isn't it? We really enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
we really liked it when we watched it. Yeah.
yes, I think if this was Monday when we talk much more about film and photography, or indeed Friday when our Something for the Weekend feature flags up things to do, we might talk about that a bit more. So maybe this Friday. In the meantime, we, in more usual times, run a clubs program for disabled people and anybody they want to bring with them. The clubs are all free. They're currently held in East Ham on weekday mornings, and we're doing our best to translate them into an online offer which is open to lots of people, including people who can't get to East Ham and, of course, non disabled people. We have a join in from home program on our website. I'm going to play you a film about that in a little bit. But first, I'm delighted to say that for the last few weeks, we've finally managed to restart one of our clubs, the Pop Up Poetry Club. And the Pop Up Poetry Club is one of the first clubs we started off. We had some initial funding from the People's Health Trust, for which thank you very much. And thank you to anyone who plays that particular lottery. So it's been going very successfully on a Wednesday morning ever since. In more usual times, we would gather around 10:30. We would have a cup of tea or coffee and some biscuits. We serve lots of free refreshments always. We would dip into our poetry library, pick out a random book, go through it when we're having our tea or our coffee, find a random poem and read it out loud to everybody else. Then we might do some breathing exercises, or we might chat, we might learn some performance techniques. But basically, we sit down, we write a poem on the spot, and then we share it. And we've translated that finally successfully with the help of our wonderful clubs team who are funded by the National Lottery. So, another big thank you to them.
Sure. Just to clarify, you said we're currently running from East Ham. We're not.
No, no, that was definitely a mistake.
Yeah.
I do have some aphasia, so forgive me for that. No, it's a phone-based group, being run from all over the place. Actually, Noel, engagement support worker, I think is running it effectively from Ilford. You're joining in from Canning Town. Our program leader, Alison Marchant, the international artist who leads it, I think is temporarily out in Essex. So yes, it very much exists online, but on the phone.
Yeah, it exists on phone. Yeah, it's great. We still have a couple of teething problems which we're sorting out, but I have to say the poets continue to completely throw me by their excellence. The standard of poetry is so good and so diverse. That's one of the things which is an absolute joy about it. Aside from anything, it's lovely to hear people's voices. It's a real treat to be able to take part in a group activity, even if we can't see each other. I get a very strong sense of individual presence. Um, and again, it's such a diverse group. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be part of it. And indeed, I feel quite honoured at times because, as I say, the standard is continually growing.
But having said that, as with all of our activities, they are open to everybody, and nobody was that great when they started. We've said this before. We have some additional places. You do not have to live in Newham. You don't have to live in Newham to come to any of our clubs. You just have to be able to get there if we're running real life events. But we do have some space for poets. If you're interested, then contact us. I'm going to put some text on the bottom of the screen. You can write to info@together2012.org.uk or tv@together2012.org.uk. We'll pass it on to the appropriate person. Julie, can you just explain for everybody who's much more digitally connected than many of our participants are how the phone-based group works? Because it's kind of older technology, isn't it?
Well, I guess it's effectively just using technology that's been around for a while. It's not so much older because we had to have it designed for us because there wasn't anything out there to use very easily. But Noel acts as a switchboard. He's our engagement support officer, and he contacts people, and we he contacts us one by one. Because
And he makes the phone call and we pay
yes,
for
I was just
it.
about to say that he calls up because it's analog technology, so it's not done on a computer. So he calls people individually. We go on to hold. There's a bit of music that plays while other people are joining, and then he announces when everybody's joined. And Alison Marchant, who's our program leader, takes over because she leads the poetry club. Um, and she does things like she takes the roll and sees who's there and makes sure that we adhere to the rules of common politeness and don't talk across each other and sort of take our turns.
And you have a theme each week, don't you? And the theme this week was movement.
It was indeed.
And would you mind if I asked you to start, Julie, and read yours? And I believe you interpreted movement in a way that other people weren't expecting.
Perhaps, yes, perhaps. I mean,
Don't give it away. Let's
it's quite
just
an
hear it.
obvious link when you think about it. It's called 1981. Sitting on the floor, we drew out our messages of hope and outrage. Reclaim the night, equal pay for equal work. We fight for our rights. Fishes don't ride bicycles. A reference to men, obscure in its meaning but clear as a picture that women can function without a man on our arm. And still the messages flowed as pens spun their tales of anger and pain, shouting out for all the world to hear, women fight back. So we took to the streets, a ragtagly crew uniting against an unjust world. Lonely voices singing our songs, chanting in harmony, and soon across the country others joined us. The numbers swelled, and millions of marching women found their voices, the common cause creating a movement.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. What do you think about that, guys?
Go on.
Does it mean anything to Josh as a young person? I
Of
ask
course it
myself.
does.
I was trying to. The significance of the date, you might have to. Is that the 1981? Is that a significant date?
Yeah, it was basically when we were reclaiming the night and Women Against Violence Against Women was born, actually throughout the country. So it was when we took to the streets with radical voices.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say that the empowerment of it kind of ran through it, but I didn't. I was trying to remember. I was like, what's the date? It's significant for something, but I couldn't
Well, in truth, I just plucked it out of the air, but I was trying to remember back, and I think it was
that
81.
probably is a correct date. I was only in my first year at university, or should I say my first degree myself, as the one time perpetual student, which of course is now our Josh. Okay, it's 3:15. What I suggest is that we read some more poems after the update. Update is a very new feature about the exciting pilot for the NHS app, but we've decided it's also a great opportunity to pun. So, what have we got for us to start with? Do you want to start with the usual line, Robin?
What's app, Doc?
Glad you asked. No doubt by the time the pilot's finished, we've got through all of the dreadful puns and actually got quite good at this. Well, on Tuesday, yesterday, I went to the very first briefing that the NHS held and saw the app in progress. And it's actually very good. Now, people who know me would be quite surprised at me saying that about anything. One of the reasons I'm known as a Ju90 the cyborg is I've been working with technology since the early 90s. I was, in fact, the first student in the UK to do my PhD as a website, etc., etc. So I was Ju90 the cyborg. So it takes a lot to impress me, including kind of the usual kind of graphic design issues. But in fact, I think the NHS has done a very good job. It was actually presented by one of the NHS equality leads, a woman called Amina. And Amina obviously knows an awful lot about access. Having said that, we know, and the NHS knows, there are always ways that you can make things better. And that is the point of the pilot. So, what we will be doing over the next few weeks is reporting back on the app, talking about the app, asking you about apps, whether you live in Newham or not. You know, what's your favourite app? What is the app you hate most? Why do you find apps difficult? If you do, what do you find good about them? And as artists, what are our favourite apps? Because in our digital year, that is going to become more and more important. I'm just wondering, guys, we talked a lot. Well, we started talking about our favourite apps on Monday, and just as now, we have a highlights and links page on our website just underneath the main Together Unlocked TV menu. So, all of the apps we mention and anything else, those links will be there. Highlights and links usually goes live on the internet by about 6 o'clock, but if not, then quite soon afterwards. I think you had some initial points you were making to me earlier about the name. And I thought that was quite interesting that it hasn't really got a name other than Test and Trace, which of course has been the name of the program. But you don't think it's a very appealing name, do you?
No, because it comes over as track and trace. And I think anything that's got track in it, for any of us who, who lived in the 80s, sort of tend to be a bit suspicious of, because it sounds like we're being tracked by the police, which is not something which appeals to certainly anybody who has spent any time in South London.
Well, shall I just put your mind at ease on that before we come on to talk about the name and see if you guys out there have got better names that we can supply the NHS? In fact, all of the data this app collects only stays on your phone. It's not at all like the one that they trialed in the Isle of Wight. Everything is anonymous. Everything is just kept on your phone. The only time the NHS know anything is if you phone them up or contact them some other way and say, I've got symptoms. I think I need a test. How do I do it? And the app makes that really, really easy. That is, it puts the symptoms on the app so you can test them, but you can book that test directly through the app. And I think for anybody like me who spends a lot of time hanging on the phone because we can't use it, or, we know because we talked about this before that all of those systems still need improving. But I think it is definitely a plus. So, do you have any ideas for how it could be named in a cuddlier way by the NHS?
Well, Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think the NHS is particularly cuddly, but especially at the moment. But
This is a former nurse we're
it's
talking
absolutely
to, of
true.
course. Sorry,
Uh,
I didn't mean to insult the NHS by calling it cuddly.
no, it's not an insult. I think uh, record and test is one way of doing it, so that you have a record of who's actually signed up, and then you have the opportunity to test and treat. So I just think taking track out of it would be, for me, I think that would give me a bit of reassurance.
Well, like I say, nobody takes your data when you download the app. The app is going to be available just like any app through the app stores, Apple, Google, and I imagine anyone else that they can get to carry it. You go to the app store for your particular phone just like you would for any other app and download it. The app store might have a record you've downloaded it, but it's not going to go over to the NHS. So, like I say, the NHS won't have any data at all. The power is very much in, the phone owner's hands, shall we
Well,
say.
I think that's right. But I think it would be appropriate.
Oh, I do appreciate the puns, Julie.
Yeah.
Keep them coming,
Uh,
please.
Not to mention track then, because it's a misnomer. It gives a false impression, and it does create uncertainty. I think I do believe what you say. I think it's absolutely right. Why would you not tell the truth? But at the same time, if you've got something that says track, then your mind starts to go around, and you think this, that, and the other, and let's just get rid of it.
Well, that is the name of the whole program, and absolutely, let's find better ways. What do you guys think?
Well, I've normally got quite a good aptitude for naming things. So I'm working on it. In the back of my mind is crunching away. I'm not promising anything by the end of the show, but if something pops in,
Can't believe you didn't say appears.
well, I'll
That would
appease
be
myself with that. Then
You had an epiphany.
no, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's just wrong.
I mean, I think the thing to really focus on is the app is about tracking the virus. It's not about the people. It's not about the people that the virus has hitched a ride on. It is very much about tracking the virus and killing the virus by not giving it an opportunity to breed from person to person. And maybe that is something else we need to focus on as well. Generally speaking, favorite apps without repeating what we've said previously.
Pardon me. I suppose there's a whole range of art apps which are jolly handy.
Yes. Now, one of my favourites, and we might talk about this a bit more on Friday. In more usual times, we have an art club on a Tuesday and a Friday, and Fridays is drawing and painting. But for now, I will just say that yes, I actually find the finger painting apps, which are usually free, and the basic drawing apps so easy to use. I've got both my hands splintered, I've got very sore hands and limited control over my fingers, and drawing with my fingers directly onto the iPad is actually, yeah, I found it a really interesting way to take up drawing. So those little apps, which have all been free, I have really enjoyed.
Well, Josh is the app king.
Yes, what do you?
Yeah, I mentioned Audible on Monday, and I said that I don't know how long I've listened to it for. I had a look after the show, and it only tracks it. It doesn't track any of your iTunes listening. It's only on the Audible app, so it doesn't count everything I used before this. But since kind of the middle of 2016, I listened to Audible for about 6 months of time, which is about 4,500 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, the other ones would be the music app. I absolutely love, and then podcasts as well. It's just called podcasts. I use those three apps probably more than anything else on my phone.
Yeah, I do enjoy Spotify, particularly because I hold the business account for Together 2012. One of the things that I think it's important to remember, we're so used to apps. Well, we should be used to apps holding our data and just keeping records of everything we've done right from the start. The NHS app won't, and I think that's really important. It's going to be keeping data that you put into it. For example, one of the features is you'll go to a community centre, you'll go to a mosque, you'll go to a church, you'll go to a pub. Instead of having to fill in some boring form to say you've been there, all you'll have to do is point your phone at their barcode poster, and your phone then knows that you've been there. But that data won't be kept for more than 14 days. Even your postcode, because you're able to put in the first part of a postcode only. So it doesn't hold any information, even on your phone, that just identifies you. But you can put in the first part of your postcode. That only lasts for 2 weeks, but it tells you in that postcode what the infection rate is. And the reason that disappears after 2 weeks is at the moment they don't have the facility to store more than one postcode, and they think people might want to swap between where they're on holiday, where they're working, where they're at home, and just be able to see with a kind of really simple, straightforward traffic light system. Is the risk low? Is it medium? Is it high? And then the app will explain what that means. I think that's it for today, apart from please give me another dreadful pun. Robin?
I haven't got another dreadful pun, but I was going to give you an app that I use very quickly.
No,
and it's
tell
called
me that on Friday, because we're
Okay.
rushing on to our promised from Monday Slow TV, where Merlot, the assistant's dog, is going to show us a couple of minutes of walking through the woodland. I do appreciate the delay until Friday. So this is Merlot. He is Steroplerge's assistant's dog, and they are currently still in isolation, but up in Suffolk.
He's such a dear little dog, isn't he? He's very appealing.
He is very
Appealing.
He is very appealing, and that is Slow Television. This month we've been talking quite a lot about nature photography and filming that you can do from home. And that was kind of an extension. We always have a virtual nature watch on a Wednesday, usually hosted by Julie's dog. So we've seen my backyard over and over again since the beginning of April. Quite transformative, but my goodness, it's nice to get into the woodland. If you have your own footage or your dog's footage of some lovely natural world stuff going on outside your window, please send it in. We would love to show it. That film will be available on our highlights and links page, along with our app date feature and anything else we mention.
Would it be porridge as opposed to footage?
Porridge. Well, it might be. I'm not actually keen that the entire show deteriorates into appalling puns, because we do want to have some viewers. If you're punning, please let us know. In the meantime, let's have a look at the rest of the poems from this morning's Pop Up Poetry Club. This is Pizer Malik, who, like Steraplergia, who owns Merlot, is a member of our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. They're taking a 2-week break, and then we will have their usual weekly contributions again. So, Pizer Malik, thinking ahead. I often be on my own, alone. I realise I have brittle bone, one aspect of disability that is me. Dreamingly ambitious, alert and cautious of what I hear and see, for what I want to be, I keep on thinking and start imagining. Where will I be with this disability? Will I fit in the community? Can I make any plan or program? For now, I'm just a community ma'am, trying to stay as a caring and loving with all my contacts who are always supporting to help me cope with life in the future. I keep thinking and looking in the mirror. Thank you, Pizer. And Pizer is actually a complete dynamo. Robin, I think you have one by Duncan Bridgestock to share next.
I do indeed. Another wonderful looking poem from Duncan, simply titled Movement. Movement is the title of a worn 1963 vinyl LP by Jamaican freeform pioneer saxophone genius Joe Harriott, 1928 to 1973. From a charity shop in Salisbury in 1981 when my dad gave it to me. I was 19. Joe's nimble fingers operating the complex system of levers and keys of his axe. The lacquer of his Selma alto saxophone was peeling. But oh my, he played with such feeling. An immediacy on his sax. No need for a fax. He was more than a clone of Charlie Parker, his hero, known as Bird. Had flown in 55. He'd very obviously paid his dues, and it came across on his blues-drenched sax. The critics didn't turn their backs. R.I.P. Joe Harriott died aged 45 in 1973 on my 11th birthday. On his tombstone it says, Parker, there's them over here, can play a few aces too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Duncan. All of the poems that we read out today will be on our highlights and links page. Julie, I think you have one from our club's programme leader, the international installation artist Alison Marchant.
I do indeed. And Alison has a particular style of work whereby she takes extracts of other people's writing sometimes. She did it with Virginia Woolf and created a whole book like that. This is an extract from another poet, and she's taken it out and given it her own Alison Marchant twist, which is wonderful. Heavy gusts of wind swirled through the trees and scattered leaves before her. Inside, she bustled across the room to close each shutter, stirred the fire, a ribbon twisted and fell into curling, spinning ripples. Thank you, Alison.
Yes, that's great. I mean, I remember Alison writing some poems. We always have extra activities in the summer, partly because other people close down, and partly because the summer is a fantastic time for the arts. And we had a month-long residency in Memorial Park, West Ham, a few summers ago, and Alison listened to all of the sounds in the park and wrote them all into prose pieces, and then they were printed out on signs and we planted them all in the beds. So that was just one of the really interesting things you can do with poems. We had a whole tree actually, which we also tied poems to. The Japanese have got a tradition of poetry trees. And with them, everything's beautifully done on fabric and it's, all looks wonderful tied to the cherry trees. But we had some ornamental cherry trees in the park and we laminated poems and hung them up with fishing line. And it was all very successful. So I do look forward to what Alison does with her poems. But it's always important to remember there's all sorts of ways you can do, things you can do with poems beyond just reading them. This is Taylor Henville Garden Observations. The cat surveys the garden, patrolling along the fence, jumping on the shed, crouching in the grass, slinking through the clothes area, stretching on the deck chair, tapping their claws against the metal. The flies swerve, duck, and zoom, hovering by the garden door, bashing against the mesh screen, locked out of the house. And the birds sit quietly in the tree, taking in the scene, except for the occasional gust of wind that makes them chirp, coo, and sing. I mean, I thought that was a beautiful poem about movement.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Taylor. So, what I'm going to do next is just put on a short video to tell you more about the join in from home activities and, in particular, the poetry activities that you can join in from home. Together 2012 is running a join in from home programme from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join in from home, to go straight to the main page where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join in from Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. All of our activities can be enjoyed by families at home, but we also have some of our favourite activities here from our family activity days, which we usually hold in the school holidays. Card making with pens, stickers, and paper is also popular. You can show someone you're thinking of them by making them a special card, and if it can't be delivered safely, then send a photograph with a personal message or keep it till later. Here we have instructions for making a sock puppet, a storage jar or night light, or a lunchbox or storage box, all of which are really popular with our family activity days. And you can click on each of these links to get full instructions. So with the sock puppet, for example, you have lots of instructions with photographs to show you exactly what to do. Same with the storage jar. And same with the lunchbox or storage box. And you can see how effective it is just to use very, very simple techniques. Everyone is completely unique. The Pop-Up Poetry Club meets on a Wednesday morning. We also run regular poetry projects and poetry cafes. We're inviting you to write or sign a poem on the theme of Together and send it to us to share on social media. We're also going to be publishing an anthology of the Together poems in November, and everybody who contributes will get a copy of the physical book. And now it's time for our Clockwork Paralympics and our contribution to the International Teddy Bear Hunt. The Teddy Bear Hunt is linked to Sir Michael Rosen and his Going on a Bear Hunt book. I don't know all of the ins and outs, but when lockdown started, the idea was that everybody tried to contribute to the bear hunt so that if you're a young person out on exercise, you can see teddy bears in the window to hunt down. And if you're not able to go out or you're running a virtual activity, you have one online. The Surgeoners appear to have a real teddy bear for once, which is great because quite often another soft toy comes in and masquerading as a teddy bear just because it wants to get on the TV. There appears to be another one hiding. Do you want to give us some audio description and tell us the name of this bear, Robin?
Okay, so this bear is going to be known as Goldie for obvious reasons because he's a medal winner. It's quite a nice bear actually. It's very soft. It's a proper teddy in a kind of golden syrup color almost. Actually, it's very attractive. I mean, almost edible, but probably not. And he has
And
a Union Jack on his foot because he
Union
represents. Because
It's
he
not on a boat. It's a Union flag.
could you stop arguing till after?
he is on a boat. Look, and it's a Union Jack, and he has to show he represents the United Kingdom in the Teddy Bear Olympics.
Or indeed, in this case, the Clockwork Paralympics.
Mm.
So we are going to race Clockwork Toys to see which teddy bear
need
gets
to
to wear
introduce
gold
this
medal
bear.
this week. And I'm going to,
Right,
Julie.
yes.
Don't worry, the bear is going to be mentioned in full.
Excellent.
So we've got a rotating competitor come out this week. We try and change competitors each week, but that's not very appropriate to try and get another toy in when we can't audio describe it. This poor teddy is never going to get a chance. No wonder Julie was so concerned. It's a small traditional golden bear. It has a purple sweatshirt on that says Ted Fringe. It comes from the Edinburgh Fringe, and I just wanted to remind you, as we have said with something for the weekend previously, there's a big virtual Fringe festival taking place at the moment. There are literally thousands of different shows that you can stream, watch online. If you're an artist, there is also a wonderful virtual Fringe centre which you can access whether or not you've ever registered for the Fringe. Both those links will be up. Which medal are you playing for this week? Birmingham 2022, London 2012 have our usual gold plastic London 2012 medal, which was
No.
given to local volunteers.
We have a Swim Northwest medal today. Para Swimming Northwest.
Yet another real medal, I take it.
Yeah, it is.
Right, so which competitor is Birmingham 2022 going to choose this week?
We're going to go for your left hand, which is the right hand side of the screen.
And will you do a little bit of commentary as usual?
We shall.
Okay, here we go. This week's Clockwork Paralympics.
So we have our two competitors ready to go. We have
Oh,
green
off to a
on the
quick
right hand
start there.
screen, orange on the left hand side of the screen. And orange appears to be staying straight so far. Green
Yes.
appears to have taken a slight detour to the food hall of the Clockwork Paralympic Village. He's gone to get himself a sarnie because he's run out of energy. So it is an absolute trouncing this week, and I do believe it will be London 2012 that is going to be taking.
Yes,
the
congratulations, London 2012.
Yes.
We are always magnanimous in defeat.
You very rarely get defeated, let's face
That's
it.
why we can afford to be.
But on the plus side, we were first in queue, first in line for lunch. So, you know.
Yes, and never argue with Paralympians. That's
I've
what
only got
I
one
say.
hand, thank you.
Well, we will put the medal on Ted and I will pop it back up. Well, Josh, it is time for our gaming and virtual sports report.
Yes. So the first thing I wanted to talk about on gaming kind of links back in a little bit to update around casual games or kind of games that you just play for 5-10 minutes, while you're waiting for your hospital appointment or the bus or whatever. So there's a couple of ones that I've played. There's the Angry Birds series, which was really popular a few years ago, and I think they still make them. Which you have a slingshot. There's a hard fought war between birds and pigs in this world, and they kind of the pigs build structures, and then you have the birds slingshot themselves at the structures, and you have to knock it down and pop all of the pigs. Don't think about the physics of it too hard, but they're quite good fun, and they've made kind of tie-in spin-off ones. So there's a Star Wars themed one and things like that. that are really good fun. I'm pretty sure they're all free, those apps, or they used to be. And then there's another game called Peggle. There's the one that I've played is Peggle 2, which is, if you imagine those, you used to get them in, you kind of drop a coin and it bounces off all the, what's that game called? Anyway, there's a series of pegs anyway, and you have to shoot a ball bearing and then you dance them all off and then they disappear.
Bagatelle.
If you say so. And that there's an iPhone, or there's a mobile version of that game that I think is free, that has, I think you get kind of 5 lives, so if you fail you lose a life, and then over time you get new lives. Or if you do have a games console, there is kind of an Xbox version of it. It's a paid game, it's not very expensive. It's a paid game, and then that you can just play to your heart's content. There's no kind of life limit on that. And then a final one was a game called Plants vs Zombies. Again, these are kind of the older games, but I thought they kind of tie in quite nicely with the new update segment. That is a kind of tower defense type game, which is you have something, an area, I think it's your garden, and then you can place turrets, which in the game are kind of plants that shoot peas and venom and things at these zombies that are trying to invade your garden, that you have to kind of defend from. And again, they're just kind of really simple ones that you can pick up, play half a game of, leave it, come back, and it'll still be there. And they're just good fun.
And sometimes they can be quite cathartic, can't they? I mean, I was hardly surprised to see that depression among adults has doubled over lockdown and everything that's come since. But yeah, sometimes there's something quite liberating about just shooting something down that is not the slightest bit real. So, it's not violent, but it is cathartic. What else is happening in the world of sport?
Yeah, so in sport, flagging up that next week Netflix are releasing a film documentary called Rising Phoenix, which is coming out on the 26th, which is a week today, I believe, which is kind of the story of the history of the Paralympic movement, which is being released to coincide of, well, when the original 2020 Paralympics should have happened. So that looks kind of really, really interesting. There's some British Paralympians in there, and then kind of a couple of high-profile Paralympic names from around the world. Yeah, talking about how the Paralympics developed, kind of the history of the movement, and it looks really exciting. It looks really interesting, and actually, it's something that Netflix themselves are kind of pushing and advertising quite hard. I've seen quite a lot of promo stuff for it, and I think it's really, really good. That it is getting kind of pushed on their mainstream social media, is that they're advertising all of this work they're doing around disability. And I think is really good that it's not just in a subset kind of Facebook group somewhere that's like, oh, have you seen this? Which is good.
Yes, and I think it's another illustration of how much crossover there is between sport, art. Well, sport is culture, but I think the films about sport are a whole kind of, well, yet another thing, aren't they? You've got the drama and the spectacle and theatre of sport, and then you've got all of the kind of media related and arts type creative related jobs and the design jobs and so on. But yes, it's just these kind of, the films I think are fascinating, and I've seen on Netflix, which I think is it's certainly, nothing is affordable if you're on universal credit, but otherwise I think is quite a kind of relatively good subscription, certainly compared to anything like Sky. They seem to have more and more documentaries about both sport and the arts. Have you noticed any others? Because I'm hopeless with names.
Yeah, Netflix has got quite a few sport documentaries on all sorts of things. they had a series called I think it's This Is Us or Last Chance You. There's Amazon and Netflix both have sport documentaries, and I can't remember which one's on which platform. Um, but they kind of follow sports teams for a year. Netflix put out something called Cheer earlier this year, which was, I mean, when it came out, it was massive. Which is a series of followed a cheerleading squad in the US that was really, really interesting. I mean, there's lots of really, really good sport films that even if you don't really like sport, you know, the stories are told in such a good way. I think maybe we'll talk about that next week. We've got a little bit more time. But yeah, there's some incredible stories. The final thing I wanted to hit on, we've talked a lot about sport coming back, and we talked a lot about able-bodied sport returning. I just wanted to give a quick congratulations, I guess, to Simone Barlam, who's an Italian para swimmer, who was racing last week at the kind of Italian national championships that have been running, all kind of distance and things, hopefully. But he got back in the pool and set 3 new world records. So he's doing all right through in lockdown, I guess. But you know, para sport is coming back as well. You know, it's not just able-bodied sport. Para sport and disability sport is starting up again, which is
And
good.
I think it's testimony because for anybody who doesn't know, our very own Surgeoners, well, Robin is a Paralympian and of many times over, and you both coach elite swimming, and you've had to do everything without water. And if somebody can come back after not swimming for those number of months and set world records, it just shows the quality of what you guys are doing, and that none of us should despair when we finally get to the Olympics and Paralympics. You know, people are still managing to find ways. And that's really a kind of continual theme, isn't it? We are flexible, creative people. We can cope. It is very difficult, and some days are more difficult than others. And I also always come back to that mind. Was it the Mental Health Awareness Week? And the theme was kindness. And Robin said quite philosophically, we have to start with being kind to ourselves. And I think that's kind of continued to be a really important message. And I think it's going to be an important message for time to come. Julie, did you have anything to add to the sport? Because the dreaded Formula One word has not been mentioned yet.
I was trying to be disciplined. The Grand Prix series continues. It's challenging in many ways because they're having to adapt. But I just wanted to point out, I think it was McLaren or Mercedes actually made valves for respirators at the very beginning of lockdown. So it's translatable technology, and I think from that perspective, it's interesting. I always have an eye on these things because, for me, the concept of lightweight batteries for your motorized chair is so attractive. I'm so fed up with heavy, heavy, nasty, nasty batteries that have got such a limited life on them, and determine how we use our motorized chairs so much. You know, we are directed by battery life very often.
Yeah, I think it was. I think McLaren certainly did,
Indeed.
and Mercedes might have done as well. There was a number of teams that, like you said, kind of at the start of lockdown, when there was that really big push for ventilators, basically said we've got the facilities for kind of rapid R&D development and production of really technical things, because that's what they do throughout the season, making new parts and things. And I kind of went, we're not using it to make cars at the moment. Let's use it to, you know, churn out medical stuff.
So, are they doing much to do battery development then, or was this a kind of more of a lateral link?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Josh probably knows more than I do. As far as I'm aware, because there's so much technology and design is so important for racing, and weight is important for racing. But lithium batteries didn't, just appear out of nowhere. I'm sure that between military research and sports research, I think that contributed very heavily to the development of lightweight batteries.
And of course, as you say, they're still not. I think we're probably some of the many power wheelchair users out there who are just dreading what is going to happen to our batteries. Our chairs are stuck in the minibus. We cannot charge them in the studio. The studio is not big enough to use them in. And the batteries are over £1,000 a pop. This is how we live, and you don't get them on the NHS. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about going freely around Newham for some time to come, but I will hope very much that the NHS app speeds those things up, and we will be applying for grants and scraping out building society accounts to get new batteries soon. So, coming up later in the week, on Friday, we always have our look at something for the weekend. And that is when we recommend things you can do mostly online, but also TV, radio. I mean, we were having a whole conversation about that, weren't we, earlier on the show about, you don't have to be watching something on the internet. And we put up on last Friday's highlights and links BBC Sounds and also the Audible app and the other apps that you mentioned then. So it's always worth going through the highlights and links page and looking back, not just at today's show, but at the previous shows. Robin, have you got any final words? They don't have to be very quick because we've got a few minutes, but is there anything else you wanted to add today?
Yes, and I think that if they call it, I want copyright. I think we should call the app Route Minder. Know where you've been, know who you've seen.
It's a good slogan.
That's what I was going over in the back of my head, trying to think of something, because there's an app, a real app called Route Finder, which is the RAC's thing. But I was thinking it might work. Route Minder, and then it's just a thought.
I think we should be brainstorming as much as we possibly can because yes, we do need to solve these issues.
I like the slogan. I just wanted to, I don't want to cut across anybody else's time, but I think it's important to raise an alert. There's a storm coming, Storm Kyle. And there's loads of warnings about flooding, and I think there might even be danger to life because I think it's going to be quite a windy one in from the Atlantic.
Oh, thanks, Julie, because I know there must have been lots of warnings, but I seem to spend most of my time either reading about art or coronavirus. Is that affecting the whole of the UK, and when from?
At the moment, it seems to be coming in now into the west and over Ireland.
How is it in the West Midlands? This is the usual way to tell because we're always sweltering.
I hadn't heard, so I opened my weather app.
I was thinking about that old-fashioned window thing.
That's a very big storm cloud that's coming towards me.
I mean, it really has been raining all day and fairly blustery. But they did talk about sort of 40, 50, even 60 mile an hour winds coming through tonight and tomorrow. So, I mean, and obviously that's not necessarily everywhere, but it can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, absolutely. Watch out for that.
And bring your cats in.
Yeah. And and of course, those places where it's been raining a lot, trees, the ground gets soft, and that's where trees tend to fall over, get blown over.
Well, of course, our slogan, and I will put it up at the bottom of the screen again, is stay home, stay creative, and stay well. If you look at the recording of Monday's show, which will be on the same website page, and indeed the recordings from last week, we've been talking a lot about nature photography and also how to photograph sheet lightning. I think we've even discussed the effects you can get if you photograph out of the window with the rain running down the glass. Yeah. So if you've got some photographs as a result of Storm Kyle, how do they name them? We shouldn't ask them to give us any names for the NHS app. But yes, if you photograph Storm Kyle or you do any other photographs, we would love to show them on the show. Please send them to info or TV at together2012.org.uk. So I think that's all we've got time for. We will certainly say stay safe in every way in terms of Storm Kyle, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Bye, everybody. See you Friday.